We're starting to see the next phase of AI as companies launch reasoning models and new text-to-video demonstrations, while debate continues about whether an actor's voice should be generated by AI for all time. We'll talk about these stories and more on Tech News this week on Today in Tech. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Today in Tech. I'm Keith Shaw. The guy behind the monitors is Chris. Hello, sir.
Hey, what's up?
And joining us as guest co-host this week is Jack Gold. He is the principal analyst at J. Gold Associates. Welcome back to the show, Jack.
Thank you, sir. Good to be here.
Jack, you're not being held hostage anywhere, right? This is this is the virtual background you have, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
If I turn around and water my plant, you'll know that it's not real.
Well, it's because you're also wearing a white shirt on a white background, so it's a little bit like you know.
I didn't even think about that.
You might be a floating head at some point, so let's hope that doesn't happen. How you been? Everything good?
Everything's good.
All right.
Everything's good.
All right, let's
get a little bit of summer again, huh? It's good.
Oh, it's the late fall. We call it Fool's Fall when it gets cool in New England, and then you get a couple of weeks of warm weather, and then the real fall begins.
Yep.
All right, so let's go into some of the stories this week. I'm always fascinated by generative AI stories, and we got a bunch of them to talk about initially. So OpenAI this week announced their new model. It's called O1, which is the first in a planned series of quote-unquote reasoning models that have been trained to answer more complex questions faster than a human can. The new model is also being released alongside O1 Mini, a smaller and cheaper version. For those who have been following the news recently, this is the Strawberry model. I believe a couple weeks ago on the show, Jack, we talked about how the pricing for that could have been ends up being $2,000 a month. That was the what was floated out there for again a lot of the researchers. This is not a model for you and I at the moment.
Right.
The company said the models are designed to spend more time thinking before they respond, with the ability to solve harder problems than previous models in science, coding, and math. Through training, they learn to refine their thinking processes and try different strategies and recognize their mistakes. So this is a quote. In our tests, the next model update performs similarly to PhD students on challenging benchmark tasks in physics, chemistry, and biology. In a qualifying exam for the International Mathematics Olympiad, GPT-4o, which is their previous version, correctly solved only about 13% of problems, while the reasoning model scored 83%. Their coding abilities were evaluated in contests and reached the 89th percentile in Codeforces competitions. So, the early model will not be able to browse the web for information or upload files or images. So, for those requests, people can continue to use GPT-4o. The developer access to O1 is really expensive. In the API, the preview model is $15 per 1 million input tokens or chunks of text parsed by the model, and $60 per 1 million output tokens. For comparison, GPT-4o costs $5 per 1 million input and $15 per 1 million output tokens. So it's about 3 times the cost, it looks like? Yeah. 3 times the cost for input and 4 times the cost for output.
Yep.
And the mini version is about 80% cheaper than O1 Preview, designed as a cost-effective model for applications that require reasoning but not broad world knowledge. So, again, designed more for researchers, again, coding, chemistry, physics. I know that they've been dinged a lot about their math expertise on a lot of these generative AI models. So I'm not surprised that they would try to tackle this as well. But does this get us one step closer to the AGI that everybody's freaking out about, or is this not as a big deal as people might think it is?
Well, it's the next step, right? It's AI is not going to be something that we jump from 0 to 10 in a year or two. It's going to take a long time. It's a long progression. What this does, though, is it concentrates on a few particular areas. They talk about physics and chemistry and the like, and so you can build a more robust model by doing that. What they don't talk about is the platform this is running on, right? We're probably talking about a data center with 100,000, 200,000 high-end NVIDIA H100, H200 GPUs, and that's why you're seeing this cost go up. It's a huge cost,
right?
And operating. I think we talked about this once before. We looked at the the Musk data center that he put into Tennessee, into Memphis, with 100,000 H100s, and just the cost to build that data center was almost $4 billion just to buy the hardware, and then it was another $4 million to run it in electricity costs per month. So this is. People look at AI as something, we get used to using the cloud and it's cheap and, you can go to Google for free and all that kind of stuff. This ain't that, right?
Yeah.
This is going to be a very expensive proposition for a long time.
Do you think that eventually the costs could come down, like what you've seen in the cloud space as well? So you will see eventually scaling that will bring it down in cost, or is it always going to be expensive because of how much you're using it?
Well, so a few things are going to happen. Number one is, hardware always gets cheaper, right, over time. We've seen this forever. It's Moore's law.
Yeah.
People claim Moore's law is dead. It's morphed. It's changed, but it's still there. But the models are getting bigger, and so the question becomes, how big is too big for a model, and what do you need to actually run? There are also better algorithms coming, and so they'll be more efficiently to run on hardware, and you get better hardware. Today we're using general purpose GPUs. That's not optimum for AI long term. There'll be AI optimized chips. So yeah, the price will come down over time. We'll also see as the models get built, the moving. He talked about the minis here, the mini AI models that will run on inference boxes that are much smaller, that are basically servers, and so the cost will come down there as well. So it's not going to be an either or. It's not going to be everything's real expensive or everything's real cheap. It'll depend. It's a little bit like you can drive a compact car or you can drive an SUV.
Right.
Depends what you're trying to do.
Right. So what kind of companies do you think will end up using this preview model of the reasoning model? Like, and then like what was holding them back before? Obviously the model was holding them back a little bit. So can you imagine what type of problems they'll be either solving or tackling with this? This isn't something for businesses just yet, is it? Or because it seems like science and research at the moment.
Yeah, and that's, I think, where they're targeting this. I think they don't want to have this run on thousands of businesses because it'll they just won't be able to handle the load, right?
Right.
And in fact, even with today's models, forget about this new model, even with today's models, the cost is so high that unless you're, Bank of America or, ExxonMobil, Heath and Jack's shop aren't going to be running these kinds of models. We can't afford it, right?
Right.
It's a big business issue. That's going to continue for a while.
Yeah,
I don't see that changing in the short term.
Do you think that we then might start seeing more ambitious AI projects from companies that, because they've been held back or they've been going after what we call the low-hanging fruit right now. So a lot of what you see, companies that are doing generative AI are all about chatbot and customer service and, the stuff that can be handled really well by a generative AI model. The big picture, the ambitious, the disruption promises that they all talk about, like, oh, it's going to be able to scan, 8 billion different x-rays and then be able to tell whether something is a tumor or not. We've seen this pitched, but I don't think we've actually seen this in production for a lot of these companies. And maybe now is this where we get to that next level of the really ambitious stuff, or, calculating the trip to Mars type of thing and how long, if something, maybe like you have to adapt your trajectory or things like that, or the big picture things of like trying to find the Big Bang, for example, in the physics world.
So companies I've talked to, companies that have been public about this, about 80% of companies that have experimented with AI have found that they couldn't use it. Or I shouldn't say that, had not been successful in what they've been trying to do with it.
Right.
That's different than not being able to use it, right? I don't see this moving the bar all that much. It'll move the bar for a few, but not for the general purpose needs of businesses. Yeah. So we're still in that early stage adoption where people are trying to figure out what to do with this. There'll always be some high-end needs that companies are willing to pay for that, will adopt new technology, but we're really early on in this stuff. And I don't see this bar moving that much. It'll move a little bit.
I mean, it'll move it in the fact, in the aspect of things people are go, oh, at least we're making progress, it feels like.
Sure.
But, yeah, I mean, for the cost, it's almost like with the Vision Pro. Like most people looked at that, saw the price tag, and said, we'll wait until it gets better or cheaper or faster, type of a thing.
Right.
But again, research organizations? It's going to have to be like major corporations that can afford the cost of this, versus just like an academic institution, right?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah,
probably.
And
unless they get a really good grant.
Right, from the government or from private industry as well.
Exactly.
All right, so we're going to move from the really high-end stuff to the next thing that's going to appeal to I think a lot of people in the creative space. Adobe has previewed its upcoming text-to-video generative AI tools. Adobe has teased some of its upcoming generative AI video tools, including a new feature that can produce video clips from still images. The latest preview builds on the in-development Firefly video model that the software giant demonstrated in April, which is set to power AI video and audio editing features across Adobe's Creative Cloud applications. The new promotional teaser shows footage produced by Firefly's text-to-video capabilities that Adobe announced but did not demonstrate earlier this year. The tool allows users to generate video clips using text descriptions and adjusts the result using a variety of camera controls that simulate camera angles, motion, and shooting distance. An image-to-video feature was also demonstrated for the Firefly video model that can generate clips using specific reference images. Adobe suggests this could be useful for making additional B-roll footage or to patch gaps in production timelines. There is a video there that Chris is playing along with it, and like the B-roll stuff is somewhat interesting if you wanted to generate B-roll, if you didn't want to search through libraries and libraries of different B-roll things. The gap footage thing is interesting. Like if you're editing something and you've got a clip, I think they show this right here on the screen. It's almost like when you expand a photo image and it fills in the background. If you change the size of the image, they're doing this on video as well. So that seemed really interesting to me. I think Chris is about to say something or no, Chris, because you're a video guy.
I mean, I don't know. I have mixed feelings about it.
Yeah. But this happens all the time with any kind of creative aspect to it. Obviously, professionals will know what to do and how to benefit from it. Again, Adobe sometimes goes after those people that don't necessarily have a budget to do all this stuff to hire these professionals. So
right, you notice they didn't talk about price.
They did not. And they made it clear as well that the training models was not trained on anybody's existing work. It was all from stock images, stock content that
sure.
Well, hey, listen, I can only say what they write down in the in what they say.
Yeah.
Well, they don't want to get sued.
Well, right. Now, interestingly enough, I think when OpenAI was talking about its Sora model, they wouldn't answer the question whether a lot of these video things were trained off of YouTube data, and probably everybody's already trained all of their video stuff on YouTube. That barn door has already been open, and you're not going to close that door again. Anyway, so do you have any additional thoughts on this, Jack? I didn't get. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, this is another tool that many people will not be able to use effectively, right? Is this for professionals? This is great. I mean, look, Adobe makes a lot of professional video editing tools, right?
Yeah.
And they're really big in that marketplace. And for them, this might be interesting. But for you and I won't talk for you. For me,
well, I use
a video expert.
Yeah, I use the Adobe Video Cloud on some of my projects. So yes, I'm familiar with a lot of the tools. So,
sure.
Yeah.
But my point is that what does this buy you? I mean, they talk about, what did they say? It was you could produce 5 seconds worth of video or something like that. There was a limit on it right now. It was a pretty small
Probably,
chunk.
Yeah.
I'm just not sure how useful this is going to be to most people, other than, I'd like to play with it. Maybe I'll make a video of my dog walking on his hind legs or something. Who knows, right? But this is ultimately, I think, when it fully flushes out, probably going to be useful for professionals. But for the average consumer, I'm not sure it's going to be all that useful. I don't know what we're going to produce with it. I mean,
maybe when this technology then gets down into that phone level, like I said, what we've seen with Apple and its image creation tools and its emoji creation thing, that's all AI. It's all fun and cute and safe. It's at the moment, so they've all got these guardrails built in. So it's again, it's a parlor trick. It's something that's impressive a couple times. Once you start, again, I've seen so many AI images now that are being produced, and the look and the feel of it, you just know that it's been AI generated. They don't even have to tell you anymore that it is or not. Yeah. And that's going to ruin it too. There was one other thing you brought up earlier, Jack, that reminded me of, you said like people will use it and they'll use it badly. It reminds me of the old days of when Quark Express came out, and there was that other page design, or there was this software computer or software program for computers in the late 80s called Print Shop. Do you remember the print? Everyone started getting into desktop publishing. And what happens is that everybody became really bad at desktop publishing. And so they used the font BrushScript all of the time because they thought BrushScript, it just looks like handwriting. And this is the Comic Sans effect too with fonts. Everyone's like, oh, it's so cute, it's so easy. And people pick crappy fonts. If they don't understand typography, if they don't, understand design, I think we're in that phase too with AI, where everything that's going to get generated, at least initially, is going to be awful until people figure out how to use it in a more professional looking environment. Just, the same way we get crappy press releases and crappy, there's a lot of things that people generate that aren't very good. So maybe,
no, come on. Everyone's an expert. That's what AI is going to do for us.
I mean, I think this would be good for, like conceptualizing or like pre-visualization. Like recently I put a pitch together for a outside client, and I actually used Adobe's AI image generator for storyboarding because it helps save it cuts down on costs and whatnot.
Right, saved you a bunch of time too.
Yeah, so instead of me going out there hiring an actor to try to get photos and stuff to try to show this concept, I just typed it into their prompt box and I was able to generate some made up images, right, to kind of prove a concept. So I don't know, maybe it'll be big in like the pre-viz, pre-production type landscape.
But the other problem with this is this another step forward in making it easier for people to do deep fakes?
Yeah, I can see that.
Oh yeah. I mean, obviously, we were already seeing that with the image stuff. I've seen so many deep, but again, it's one of those things where I think we've been fooled enough times where the red flags are up. You could spot deep fakes now a lot more easier than you can, than you could have before.
I mean, there's so many pictures on the internet now of Trump running away with cats and dogs,
right,
on the internet. So
yeah,
but you could tell, it's obviously, it's not real, it's fake, it's got that, AI shine to it.
That's today, and that's with cheap tools.
Yeah.
There are some deep fakes coming out. If you've got the professional tools to be able to do that, there are deep fakes coming out that are really troublesome because we're not going to be able to find it.
Oh, sure.
It's not apparent.
Yeah, definitely.
And so, this is all a question of good technology, good use of technology versus bad use of technology. And that's true of anything, right? Look at all the social media is great until people start putting up garbage that doesn't make any sense or is negative or, discriminatory.
Yeah, so, I mean, obviously, if people have already thought about the deep fake stuff from the photo standpoint and the voice standpoint, they're going to be doing it on the video side as well. It's not like all of a sudden everyone's going to have an ethical, moral compass. They'll be like, oh no, we're not going to create anything with video now. Yeah, I mean, you go into some of the dark corners of the web too, Jack. There's already stuff out there on the video side too that again, responsible people will be responsible. And then people sometimes are just looking for money and things like that. So I want to jump ahead. I'm going to get to two more. We got two more AI stories, but we were talking about a lot of the work that was going into creating a lot of this stuff. So James Earl Jones died earlier last week, and he obviously everybody was really sad about him. He passed away, but he was the voice of Darth Vader, and in addition to doing all of these other kind of iconic roles. So in the wake of his death, an aspect of his career that has come to the fore, consenting to the use of artificial intelligence to replicate his performance as Darth Vader after he stepped away from the role. Skywalker Sound and the Ukrainian company Respeecher used AI to recreate Jones's villain for the 2022 TV show Obi-Wan Kenobi on Disney+. Mark Hamill's voice was also de-aged using Respeecher for his appearance as Luke Skywalker in The Mandalorian. Voice actors say that they fear AI could reduce or eliminate job opportunities because the technology could be used to replicate one performance into a number of other movements without their consent. A concern that led video game performers with the Screen Actors Guild, American Federation of Television and Radio Artists, to go on strike in late July. To some, Jones's decision to allow AI to replicate his voice raises questions about voice acting as an art, but also potentially helps lay the groundwork for transparent AI agreements that fairly compensate an actor for their performance with consent. So he made a deal separately, I think, with this company. And so I think the idea is that for future Star Wars episodes that include Darth Vader, they'll still be able to use the James Earl Jones voice, and it'll sound like him, versus maybe hiring another new actor to try and replicate that same voice. There's a quote here that I want to, that was really interesting in this story. This was from Crispin Freeman, an actor who has done voice matching work replicating Orlando Bloom's voice in Pirates of the Caribbean, said that the technology may take away voice matching roles, but does not harm the ability of future artists to blaze their own trails. And this is the quote, "We always need to keep reinventing new stories as we're going forward and not simply relying on the old stuff. Rather than worrying, will someone else be able to be Darth Vader, why don't we make a new Star Wars character that's as compelling as Darth Vader?" And so he's just trying to turn it around a little bit and say, it's great that we can have, his voice as Darth Vader, but why don't we think about creating new characters and more interesting characters and expand the universe rather than just relying on the same old tropes?
Or hire actors who can reenact his voice.
Well, it's less expensive to do the voice AI.
Yeah, there you go. Bingo.
This is another issue around, what is AI good for, right? So AI can replicate Darth Vader.
Yeah.
Replicate James Earl Jones. By the way, he lived to 93. God bless him. I'd like to make it that far, so that's not a bad thing. But there's a difference between being able to replicate and being able to create. And I think that's what this actor was saying, and he's absolutely right. AI, you can get AI to say anything you want in James Earl Jones's voice, but what an actor, a human, brings to the table that AI can't possibly do yet is really create a new character.
Right.
It's not just about the voice, it's about everything. And so I'm not as worried about that. By the way, I'm also glad that they actually got permission to use his voice.
Right.
Because in a lot of cases, people don't do that, right?
Right.
They just pull it off the web. So that's a good thing. But it's really a creativity issue versus a mechanical, operational type of issue. And so, we'll see where it goes ultimately. But I think the actor was right in saying that creativity is not going to be negatively affected.
And I think that and I'm fine with James Earl Jones deciding to do this, and if they want to use his voice as Darth Vader, they can use it, and his family, the estate's protected and the family gets money and all that.
Right.
We saw that there was a few months ago we talked about 11 Labs, which does a lot of this stuff. They've made deals with the estates of Burt Reynolds, Judy Garland, and James Dean, and now you can get them to read books in their voice. I think Judy Garland reads The Wizard of Oz. But I don't think they're reading the news in that voice either. I think that those are specific content types that they're reading. It's not that they're using just general for whatever. We've seen celebrity voices in GPS apps, for example, too. So they'll give you the turning directions, but those are all recorded by the actor too. I can't imagine you could start seeing deals down the road for all of that being AI produced at some point too.
Well, you're going to get sued if the actor or
Well, no,
at
no.
least the
As long as you have
estate-
permission from the actor, yeah. No. I wouldn't expect any. Hey, if you want me to give voice directions in my voice, feel free to send. License me. Just contact me. I'll be happy to lend my voice. You want me in the car all the time, right, Jack? Like that's
Sure.
turn
Sure.
left here,
No
idiot.
problem.
Like that's what I would probably end up saying.
You want my voice over in the car? No.
Yeah. All right. So one AI story that also piqued my interest this week was that Google their AI is about to decide whether unemployment workers get benefits. And this is a little disturbing to me and concerning to me. But within the next several months, Nevada plans to launch a generative AI system powered by Google that will analyze transcripts of unemployment appeals hearings and issue recommendations to human referees about whether or not claimants should receive benefits. And where's the next part of that story? Hold on. Here we go. The system will be the first of its kind in the country and represents a significant experiment by state officials and Google in allowing generative AI to influence a high-stakes government decision, one that could put thousands of dollars in unemployed Nevadans' pockets or take it away. Nevada officials say the Google system will speed up the appeals process, cutting the time it takes referees to write a determination from several hours to just 5 minutes in some cases, helping the state work through a stubborn backlog of cases that have been pending since the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. The tool will generate recommendations based on hearing transcripts and evidentiary documents, supplying its own analysis of whether a person's unemployment claim should be approved, denied, or modified. At least one human referee will then review each recommendation, and this is according to Christopher Sewell, who is the director of the Nevada Department of Employee Training and Rehabilitation. If the referee agrees with the recommendation, they will sign and issue the decision. If they don't agree, the referee will revise the document, and then the government will investigate the discrepancy. The quote, there's no AI written decisions that are going out without having human interaction and human review. We can get decisions out quicker, so that actually helps the claimant. Now, the concerning part from judicial scholars and others are saying that an emphasis on speed is basically going to kind of undermine any guardrails that Nevada puts in place. The time savings they're looking for only happens if the review is very cursory, said Morgan Shaw, director of community engagement for Nevada Legal Services. If someone is reviewing something thoroughly and properly, they're really not saving that much time. At what point are you creating an environment where people are sort of being encouraged to take a shortcut? And another person was quoted, if a robot's just handed you a recommendation and you have to check a box and there's pressure to clear out a backlog, that's a little bit concerning.
Right.
It's
right.
Yeah. I've been unemployed several times in my career. My dad went through a lot of different unemployment things. And what you want in these cases is a human being with knowledge, but also empathy and empathy and compassion. Thank you. And I don't see an AI having that,
right?
Based on, and I've also seen too many companies that have tried to wiggle around the requirements for, not approving unemployment benefits and then saying, oh, well, that person quit, or, and there's a lot of you have to have humans deciding this stuff. You can't have an AI. And again, I understand that they're saying, well, the AI isn't making the decision, it's just making the recommendation. But this is going to be looked at, I think, with a fine tooth comb. Jack.
And legal challenges for sure.
Yeah.
So I'm troubled by this on a number of different levels. Number one is, you've got an AI program looking at documentation. What's the model it's trained on? How does it decide what's good or what's bad? So that's number one. Number two is if they're using the AI model to basically spit out a summary, because that sounds like what it's doing. They're probably looking through 20, 30, 40, 50 files, whatever it is, and they'll come out with a couple of paragraphs summary. And then there's a human reviewer. How does he know that summary is valid, or she? Right. How do they know that what the AI tool just spit out isn't eliminating stuff that would have a different effect if they were able to use it? Number three is, and this is a tendency of everybody that's busy, if somebody puts something in front of you and if it looks reasonable, you're just going to say, okay, it looks okay, do it. They're not going to really review it to any extent. I think that person, that critic was correct. So this is troubling in many aspects. I don't know ultimately. I mean, look, ultimately they're doing this for two reasons, right? one, they're understaffed, and two, it's cheaper.
Right.
You don't have to hire as many people.
Yeah, and they're trying to get through a backlog, and and obviously this is one way that they can do it. But you and I both know. I mean, even when you and I are given the terms of service for a new software thing, and then it says you have to read through the entire thing. How many of us really do this? What do? We scroll to the bottom, we click the button, and then it comes out later that's like, you've just given up the rights to your firstborn son. I was like, oh, really? Well, yeah, you should have read the contract, or there's so many things and legalese, and so the summaries of the evidence in a lot of these cases, it's more about decisions that have been previously made. And so they're like, yes, let's just give a wild example. It's like we never pay unemployment benefits if you were wearing a purple shirt, at your hearing. And they've got evidence that says all of these things. Like this was the reason why that these things were denied. And so happens to have a purple shirt on. Well, yeah, but like, but if you had a human, the person might say, yeah, I was wearing this purple shirt because I spilled coffee on it. Normally I wear a red shirt. And so then the human would go, oh, okay, well, in this case, I guess we're allowing it. And again, it has nothing to do with the shirt color you're wearing. But you see what I'm saying? It's like you need a human. Like not every case is exactly the same, and if you start using cookie cutter approaches to making these decisions, that's what bugs me about the possibility of AI judges at some point. Like it just doesn't make any sense. So right. I'm on the side of the let's proceed with caution here, and let's not do that. Even if you claim to have humans there, humans make mistakes.
It's risk reward, right?
Yeah.
The risk is much higher than the reward in this case, in my opinion. You're gonna have people rejected or claims rejected because of what AI did that perhaps would have gotten through otherwise.
Right, and yeah, and especially there's some. I'd rather err on the side of giving these people some of this money. Now there are cases where people will try to defraud, and sure. maybe this can slow down that, but I'd rather let a few of those cases go through rather than someone who does need the money and protect the consumer in this case.
I agree.
All right, so I want to move to our next category, which is we're going to talk a little bit about video games for a second, Jack. So if you want to take a break on this one, you can. But Microsoft is laying off approximately 650 employees from its video game business. The tech giant's latest move to cut costs after its $75 billion acquisition of Activision Blizzard last year. The layoffs affect mostly workers in corporate and support roles and are being done to organize our business for long-term success, according to Phil Spencer, CEO of Microsoft Gaming, in a company email Thursday that was viewed by the Wall Street Journal. No studios will be closed, nor will any games, devices, or experiences be canceled. While demand for interactive entertainment shot up during the pandemic following decades of mostly steady growth, consumer spending declined in 2022 and has rebounded only modestly since then. The move also comes as Microsoft has been investing heavily in AI, including more than $13 billion in funding for ChatGPT maker OpenAI. So the gaming division cuts follow the Xbox maker's decision to let go of roughly 1,900 workers from the unit at the start of the year and the closure of all three of its studios in May. In January 2023, Microsoft laid off 10,000 employees across all of its businesses, including Xbox personnel. The company then gained around 10,000 employees with the October acquisition of Activision. And so far this year, game companies overall have let go more than 11,500 employees. It seems like this industry has just continued to bleed, Chris. I mean, we were talking against this whole Activision Blizzard acquisition for end user consumer purposes of, they'll have a monopoly on some of these games. And, but I did not expect to basically, continue to see layoffs here. You expect usually one or two round of layoffs. So again, I just don't understand how businesses work, I guess, Chris.
I think they could start by making good games that people want to buy. I think a lot of games today are too much in the live stream. The
live service.
Yeah, the live service model. There's been a handful of games that have come out that have been home runs. And Some of them are coming from Japan, right? You have Elden Rings. You have
The China was the
yeah, that
latest
was
one
from
was
China.
was it Black Wukong Monkey? I probably
Yep.
just messed that up.
Yep. And there's obviously Baldur's Gate, Space
was
Marine 2.
Yep, that
those
was-
are I think those are American.
No, look, this shouldn't
So-
surprise anybody, guys.
Oh no, it's
Well,
not surprising.
It's not surprising.
It's definitely not surprising.
It's more
Like,
disappointing.
Yeah, it's disappointing, man.
Sure.
Yeah, it's like
What big company that makes an acquisition of another company doesn't have layoffs?
Right. But again,
oh yeah, they got to lay them off. They
yeah,
gotta lay
and
people
they've
off.
done that, but it just seems like they're continuing to do it. Between that and the next story, which is Sony announced its PS5 Pro, and nobody seems to be excited about it because the price tag is what $700 plus.
Yeah, and
Sure.
by the end of the day, once you throw on the accessories, it's like 800.
Right. And they had this big announcement and they were like, oh, look at the differences between the two models. And you look at it and you go, it looks exactly the same.
It's not worth 700.
All they've done is added racing stripes to the cover, I think from
Well, no, there's a quantitative like increase in performance power. So you're supposed to get slightly better graphics, but it's like not enough to justify the $700 price tag. Like
I think
that's
And where
ridiculous.
they sell 10,000 of them or something like that,
Yeah, they're not going to sell a lot at all. They're not going to sell enough. And
and instead of 10 million or 100
Well,
million.
Yeah.
there's other people that say that like they have not, like there's still people that are holding on to their PS4 because they have not been, convinced that there's been like this A+ PS5 game. Like
Well-
now, I eventually got one, and so I'm now on the PS5, and I play a bunch of different games, but I'm also playing like Fortnite and things like that, which are,
Well, the other thing too is you have the PC market, and on top of that,
Right.
you have crossplay now,
Right.
and a lot of these games are being released cross-platform. So you don't necessarily have to have an Xbox or PlayStation 5 now, because a lot of games are coming out for PC at the same time. So you could buy, you could put together a, $1,500 PC. It could last you 8 years, right? Instead of the usual, 4 to 5 year cycle rate for a console, right? So
yeah.
it's becoming more competitive, and
What I want to, Chris, you're much more of a PC gamer than I am. I do have a gaming laptop type thing, but I don't like playing games on it. And it's mainly because with the console, I have it hooked up to my TV. I can sit on the couch and play it. I just don't have the right setup, I think, for the PC game. Like,
so
do you play your games in like an office, or is it more of a living room scenario with the PC game? Like, it feels like you have to be at a desk playing a computer game versus on a couch playing a console. That's what I've broken it down to in my mind.
Yeah, I mean, you could just take your laptop, plug it into your TV through HDMI, and plug in your controller through USB.
It just
You could
it
do
just
that.
sounds like so much work.
That's
Chris.
not. How's that so? No. Then you,
Are you
just
available
leave it there, and
you available to come over to my house and hook up the system and make me play? Like, so you could play on it. I mean, I guess I could play on an HDMI. Yeah, I suppose I could.
just plug it into your TV.
All right.
Yeah,
And you know
and
what
the
I
same
need?
thing with PC gamers. Like, if you want, just take your PC, put it in your living room, plug it into the HDMI, and there you go. Here you
Well,
go.
the other problem is
even
too is that,
high-end gamer consoles today, even high-end gamer displays today are HDMI.
yeah. And it's that, but it's also like when you're playing a PC game, for example, if you want to chat with people, there's typing involved, and so you got to make sure you have a.
just download Discord.
You have I know, and see, I know there's every time I complain about something, there is an answer.
A very easy answer.
It's just like now it's another thing I got to learn.
Because that's the thing with PC gaming is, I mean, in my eyes, you have more flexibility than console. That's just me.
Right.
But, you can make
I like the idea of moving from console to PC. It's just I'm not ready to make that leap yet. Like when remember in the Matrix when Neo's on top of the building and he's and Morpheus tells him make the leap.
Yeah.
I'm still on that building. I'm
Well-
on the console building.
Well, the other
And I'm not ready, and if I jump, I know I'm going to fall type
the
of a
other
thing.
beauty about PC gaming, I don't know if you know this, but You know, a lot of the controllers today, they're wireless, or you could plug in through USB.
Yeah,
so you just take your controller, plug it into your computer.
And I've done that with some of my old PS4 controllers, but it just, it works on a game by game basis as well. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
All these excuses, Keith.
I know,
Come on.
I know. It's my own damn fault. That's the problem. All right, Jack, I'm sorry we had that little gaming interlude there for you.
It's okay.
All right, last one, and earlier this week or last week, I don't know, it depends on when you're watching this, but Apple had its big iPhone 16 Pro, iPhone 16 announcement. They announced a whole bunch of stuff. We've already covered that with our friends Ken and Mike from Macworld and Computer World. But there was another feature I wanted to bring up with you, Jack, which is the AirPods hearing aid feature. What's very interesting about this, so the FDA also then gave its thumbs up to this idea. So they did approve it from a software perspective that you can now use these AirPods Pro 2 as a hearing aid for slight hearing loss. As an over-the-counter hearing aid, so that was some interesting news. I think this was the biggest news from that event, more than the phones, to be honest, because I think this is about to disrupt a market that frankly needs disruption, based on the conversations we've had here on the show, with how much hearing aids cost. And so I'm all in on this. And in fact, I was already looking up today, like, how much is this going to put me back, and when do I want to buy these things? I do have in-ear earbuds for the gym and working out and things like that. So I'll probably still use those. But I think from a hearing aid perspective, it's very interesting. But there's this article that was bringing that we're on the screen here. Talks about a lot of this stuff with the etiquette questions. So basically, the uncertainty of whether someone wearing a pair of AirPods means that they either can or can't hear you is likely to create some comedic moments. There's an etiquette question. Wearing an in-ear headphones divides opinions. Some take a hardline views, suggesting that wearing them in any situation where someone else might want to talk to you is rude. This often includes wandering around a store where an assistant might want to approach you to offer help. Other examples, an airline attendant, or if you're at work in a cubicle, it's impossible. Once this update goes out, it's going to be impossible to know whether someone who is wearing these AirPods Pro 2 and subsequent models is listening to either entertainment music or even active noise cancellation induced silence, or if they're going to be using them as hearing aids to ensure that they can hear people talking to them. So I just think that it's going to create all these etiquette questions now. And there were, in doing a lot of the research around this story, there were companies that were banning the use of like these big headphones that people would wear in their cubicles, because they wanted the employees to be more engaged with each other. This was all pre-pandemic, by the way, Chris, or pre-remote work. So I just think we need to talk a little bit about that, the etiquette question. Jack, what are your thoughts around this?
Yeah, a couple of things. So number one is, as you stated earlier, this is a big advance for people who are hearing impaired. The cost of a typical hearing aid, when you go into a hearing aid shop, they're $3,000, $4,000, $5,000. It's absolutely ridiculous. And we've gotten to the point now where the technology on these earbuds is so good. I mean, I remember seeing a demonstration by Qualcomm 3 years ago when they were talking about, there's significant processing going on inside these earbuds that people don't realize. I mean, there's a big processor in there,
right.
And they were able to do all kinds of not only helping hearing impaired, but actually doing hearing testing to see what you could hear or not hear, and then feeding that back to your phone and feeding it back into the headset so that it actually aligned with what you needed. So from a technology perspective, this is really good stuff. Now, from the etiquette perspective, 9%, 10% maybe of the population is hearing impaired. So 90% of people you see wearing those buds around don't need it for hearing. They're doing it because they want to listen to something.
Right.
Are you going to ask? Personally, I wouldn't be embarrassed if someone asked me, because they'd ask me once, they wouldn't ask me again. So I don't know that it's going to be as big a deal as people think it is. But, if it's a stranger, you don't know them, you've never met them before, it's different at work because you kind of know if people have a problem with hearing or, other things because,
Right.
you associate with these people. So, I mean, I go into a store now and half the people walking around the store have earbuds in on their head anyway. So
Yeah,
how is this going to be any different?
I remember the early days of the Bluetooth headsets on cell phones, and there was a big etiquette question of like, should you be walking around in public talking? And it became humorous because you could always at least see the headset that was on their ear because these things were big giant microphones at one point. And then it was weird if you're walking around in New York City and you just see someone rambling and talking to themselves. You're like, oh, they're either a crazy person or they're or they're on the phone with someone, and you wouldn't want to talk to them anyway if they're on the phone. But since this, what people do now is more likely to be using them just to listen to music when they're walking around, and rather than just on the phone. I don't even see a lot of people talking to themselves anymore.
Right. I agree.
Because I think because again, I think more people are there's less and less people that are using the smartphone as a phone. It's more likely that if you wanted to communicate with someone, you're just going to be texting them at this point.
What's a phone call?
I know it's well, yeah. Half the time I get phone calls now, it's either spam or someone I don't want to talk to, and then I hit decline.
There's another point to this earbuds, and that is that in many cases, people are actually damaging their hearing with the earbuds,
Right.
because they turn them up so loud and use it over such a lengthy period of time that they're actually doing damage to their ears and don't know it.
So again, and I think we talked about this too, where is Apple doing a lot of these things because they've had equipment for so many years that have actually contributed to the health problems of people. I'm certainly not a lawyer and going to get involved in that, but for how many years have AirPods been out? You're like, oh, well, we might have created a whole generation of people that have hearing issues. Oh, well, let's add a feature where they turn into hearing aids,
Sure.
or automatically cut down the volume. I mean, that's something I think I've noticed on some of my earbuds is that I can't go up really high where I used to with some headphones.
Yeah, but you can turn off those limits, and people do it.
Yeah.
I've walked next to people that had earbuds in their ears and heard what they were listening to. I mean, that's insane from the perspective of what that's doing to your hearing.
Right.
It's like driving up next to a car. We all see this in traffic, right? Somebody's got their stereo in their car turned up so you can hear it 3 blocks away. And it's not even good music, by the way.
This is turning into old people yell at clouds podcast, Jack. You got to be careful there. From the generational standpoint, I also love this idea because everybody doesn't want to admit that they're getting older. And so for me, where I'm at that age where I'm starting to at least think that I'm losing my hearing, parts of it, because my wife will come into the room and going, why do you have this TV on so loud? And I don't think it is. So that's one of those signals. Now, of course, obviously there's the whole selective hearing issue. Like, well, I'm choosing not to listen to conversations around me. Haha. But, I notice yeah. So I don't want to get a regular hearing aid because that has a stigma attached to it, unfortunately.
Right.
So I think that me having those in my ears, using it for the hearing aid purposes, and then obviously music and podcasts and things like that, will actually help me without having to see that there's a stigma attached to it. So
there's another positive aspect, potential positive aspect of it. And I don't remember Apple saying this, but in theory, at least, you could put a hearing test app on the phone running through the...
Yeah, they're going to do that, in fact.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I hadn't seen that explicitly. Now, the problem with that is that you really do need FDA approval to do that right.
That's what they got. Yeah, they got the approval to do that. So
I thought it was just for the earbuds. I didn't realize it was also for the test.
I think it's for the test as well. So
okay.
Yeah. So I won't. I'll be able to buy this. I can buy the headphones now. When the software update drops, then I can get the hearing test, and then I think that would activate the hearing aid ability. Is what I'm thinking.
Okay.
Otherwise, I, again, I have to schedule an appointment with my doctor, and you
Sure.
know, go through a specialist, and it's just like, I don't want to do that because,
Right.
you know, I'd rather just see how it works here. And then if it still continues not to work, then I go and talk about, then I go to the next step.
Right.
I just think this is a really cool next step rather than trying to investigate other over-the-counter hearing aids, which, I don't want to pay for or can afford. So,
and spending, $300 to $400 for these versus $3,000 to $5,000, it's a pretty big benefit.
I can guarantee you that other headphone makers or earbud makers will adopt this as well. I can certainly see, other earbud companies going after this type of market too. So
it's not unique to Apple.
Right.
Android there'll be Android devices that do the same thing for sure.
Yep. All right. So we're gonna end on a positive note, Jack. Good stuff. Sometimes technology is cool.
Sometimes.
Yeah. All right.
It actually helps us.
All right. Thanks for being the co-host this week, and have a great weekend.
Thank you.
All right.
Great being here. You take care.
Yep. That's all the time we have for today's episode. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and add any comments you have below. Join us every week for new episodes of Today in Tech. I'm Keith Shaw. Thanks for watching.